Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome back to episode number 18 of the Cleveland Indians franchise here on MLB The Show 21 for the PlayStation 5. Today we have the second edition of our draft preview where we take a look at prospects in the upcoming MLB Draft and see who could potentially be future Indians. So if you're excited for this one, make sure you leave a like and subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. Now, this is the second edition, and today's episode will be more about potential late round pickups, those who might fall to the Indians outside of round one. If you want to look at the blue chip prospects, you can see that link at the end of the video, so stick around if you want to see all the top prospects in the upcoming draft class, because the draft class will be next episode. Now, we got about 6 players we'll take a look at today, and here is the first one, starting pitcher Rodberg out of Blue Valley Southwest High School in Overland Park, Kansas. Rodberg is a right-handed pitcher, and he's probably, out of all the people we're going to see today, going to go the earliest. I could definitely see Rodberg being a first-round pick. He's 18 years old out of high school. He has committed to play for LSU if he so desires, but I do not see Rodberg going the route of college. I think he is ready to go into the draft. I think somebody will want to pay Rodberg. Now, what do I like about Rodberg? He has elite break. His pitches will fall off of the table, and he's only 18, of course. Now, his ETA is also 2024, so that means if he's 18 coming out of high school, his ETA for the majors at the age of 21, which is very, very young. That means he's got a bright, long career in the majors. He also does a good job at limiting walks. We saw a couple of walks in the second inning of this game against rival Blue Valley West. But he also does a fairly good job of minimizing hits. The ball might get put in play a lot, but usually he'll put it on the ground towards his teammates. And Rodberg doesn't give up many hits. Some of his cons, he needs to keep working on keeping the ball in the ballpark. He does give up the long ball from time to time, and he is only 18, so I think that can be worked on. But something just to keep an eye on for Rodberg. It also says he has elite velocity, but I don't know about that, because if you look at his fastball, it tops out at about 91, and to me that's really not elite velocity. Maybe it gets a little faster, but I am not entirely sure. Out of all the prospects we'll see today, Rodberg is probably my favorite. We do have a late first round pick, so if all the blue chippers go, I can see Rodberg being that guy that we go after once all the top blue chip players come off the table. Here's a look at his 60-80. You can see, like I said, that velocity is already at 70 and potential 80, but with a 91 mile an hour two-seamer, I'm not entirely sure. Next up, we have a game against the California Golden Bears and the USC Trojans going out west to Dedeaux Field for some Pac-12 action, specifically looking at Woody Ross, a third base prospect from the University of Cal. He is a third baseman who can also play first, and he is also a switch hitter at 22 years old. And he also has an ETA of 2025 plus, so he's going to be a little bit of a project. But, at third base, we do have Nolan Jones there waiting in the wings, Jose Ramirez, and Woody Ross, wouldn't mind being developed for a while. Another thing about when I draft, update of how I draft, I go BPA, especially in the baseball, especially since these players probably won't make an impact for a while. I'm not going to sit there and go by needs. So just because we have Jose Ramirez and just because we had Nolan Jones doesn't mean I won't pick another third base prospect. But back to Woody Ross, some of his pros, he is very well rounded. He has nothing that is really that much of a weakness. Everything is pretty linear across the board, pretty horizontal. He can also steal some bases, something we don't really have on the roster. We don't have a specific elite stolen base guy on the base pass. And he can be a good late round pick. I think he's a good value pick, especially if he's, even across the board. You can kind of work with that. He might not reach the majors soon, but at least you kind of have he has a pretty high floor, so I should say. His ceiling might not be that high, but he has a very specific area where he could fall. Some of his cons, just like I said, he's pretty linear, so that means he's got no elite trait. He's not like an elite hitter. He's not going to hit for elite home runs, not elite speed, not elite fielder, but he's just good at everything. Also, he might not hit the majors till he's 25, 26 plus, so that's pretty late in his career. Hopefully he doesn't start to decline by the time he hits the majors. So I think he could just end up being a full-time minor leaguer. That's probably his floor. Also, he has a lot to work on. Like I said, he's still got a long ETA, nothing's elite, but he could be a potential nice solid pick later on in the draft. As you can see, he's gone 1 for 3 today. He gets jammed here. That'll be the flyout. But Woody Ross, third base prospect, can also play first, switch hitter. He's got a lot of promising things to him, as Cal does beat USC in today's game by a final score of 5-3. He went 1 for 4. Here's a look at his stats. Like I said, 50s to 65. You know, he's average to above average and everything, but just nothing's well above average. And a lot of his stuff currently is very, very raw. So that's Woody Ross for you. Next player we'll look at is a first base prospect from the Illinois Fighting Illini, from the Illinois, who are obviously playing a little fun series against the Wisconsin Badgers in Wrigley Field. So this one will be very interesting to take a look at. Specifically, James Barnett, a first base prospect. You can also play third. He is a right-handed hitter, 22 years old, also 2025 ETA, so he's very similar to that Woody Ross build and Woody Ross current timeline. Some of his pros, he's a very good contact hitter. He's already above average in that regard. He's going to hit for contact. He can put the bat on the ball. He's also very good vision and discipline. He's got, you know, he will take pitches. He can draw some walks. James Barnett is very patient at the plate, and that allows him to continue to get on base at a pretty solid amount. He's also got very good durability. He hasn't missed a single game in college, and he hasn't really had a major injury. So, you know, James Barnett will stay on the field. Some of his cons, like Woody Ross above him, he is already 22 with late ETA. Will not, you know, hit the majors anytime soon. So, you know, you're going to have a project with James Barnett, but that's kind of what you need in the later rounds. It's hard to find those players who are going to just hit the majors immediately, make an immediate impact. Also, he will not hit the long ball, which is kind of, to me, odd, because if you look at his build, if you look at just like the way he looks and he plays first base, and I feel like he has a very power stance, he doesn't really hit many long balls, which is that's could be a con, especially for someone who could play like the corner infield spots. Usually those are your power hitters. And speaking of corner infield, he probably will have to be a DH at some point. His fielding is not very good, and I could see him just end up being a potential long-term DH, which, if that's the case, that basically cuts off half of his teams. And I don't know if I want to fill the DH spot with somebody who's just not going to hit a home run, because that's usually what they do. You want your DH to be one of your best hitters. And if James Barnett's not going to hit home runs, then I don't know if I want to waste that spot instead for somebody like a Franmil Reyes down the road, or a Jose Ramirez, who might also be good at the field, but he can hit the ball. Illinois got slaughtered in the second game, 12-1 against Wisconsin, so that was kind of something to look at. But here's a look at James Barnett. Very good contact hitter. He's got good vision, discipline, but just not going to hit for a lot of power. 55 overall, currently 60 potential. I would probably pick James Barnett over Woody Ross. The last of our corner infield guys that we'll take a look at today is a man out of LSU. His name, Woody Landers. Now, he is predominantly first base, but unlike Woody Ross and James Barnett, he doesn't have any experience at third base. So Woody Landers is basically a first base prospect. He is a righty hitter out of LSU, 21 years old, so a year younger than James Barnett and Woody Ross, and also has ETA of 2024. So Woody Landers would probably hit the majors before Woody Ross or James Barnett. If you take his age and his ETA, that means he will probably be the majors by the time he's about 24, 25. I think that's rather generous for Woody Landers. I think he has a lot more to do before he is fully ready for the majors. But some of his pros, he is a very elite contact, kind of like James Barnett. I do think he hits better than James Barnett, but he has that very elite contact swing. He is a lot like James Barnett, except just a year younger and a more polished. So if I had to pick one between Barnett and Woody Landers are on the table, I probably would take Woody Landers. He just got that extra little bit of year that he's ahead of James Barnett, and that's kind of the deciding factor in that regard. Unlike James Barnett, or so to speak, Woody Ross, Woody Landers is a very good fielder, so he won't be stuck at DH. He can definitely play first base. He's got an elite glove. I can see him potentially being a Gold Glove winner down the road. Some of his cons, like Barnett, his power won't really be there, and for being a first baseman, like I said, that's kind of one of my issues. Like, I want my first baseman to be a power hitter, and Woody Landers might not be like that. And he really has no position flexibility. He's just a first baseman. He's not going to play anywhere else, and that can kind of hinder somebody at some point. Speaking of his power, though, I did simulate a game versus Vanderbilt, and you can see Woody Landers went 2 for 4 with 2 home runs. So there's a little bit of power for you, but just don't expect it to come around like all the time. So you can see 55, 60 max right now. He's a little bit below average, but he's got elite contact. I do like Woody Lander, so I can see him maybe being taken like second, third round if he is there. Now the last player we do have game tape of today is a relief pitcher out of the University of South Carolina, go Gamecocks, by the name of Derek Garce. Now Derek Garce is 21 years old, 25 plus ETA, so it's going to be a little bit before we get there. 6'2", 193 righty, and he's got phenomenal velocity and break. So he's got elite velo and break. Got two of the three that I like to look at. When I look at a pitcher, I look at his velocity, I look at his break, and I look at his control. If you have two of those, then you could be a pretty good pitcher. He's also got a very high K per nine. I think that kind of goes along with the velocity and break. So Derek Garce will strike out a lot of batters. And speaking of his control, I think it's in a solid spot already. So his control is not, elite, but I think he has enough control of his pitches, so it's something you can work on, and maybe his control does, blossom and become a solid third straight. And he gets all three, and he's just a solid pitcher. Also, relief pitchers are kind of hard to come by. A lot of pitchers are not, unless you're a closer or a setup man, like you don't have that many elite bona fide middle relievers you can count on. And if we get somebody like Derek Garce and he develops, that could be somebody you can add to the bullpen. So I think his ETA is 2025. I think he could potentially hit that earlier if he does play well in the minors, if he does control those pitches. So I do like that about Derek Garce's game. What I don't like, he needs to work on hits allowed. So especially coming out of the bullpen, he allows a little bit too many hits, allows too many runners on base that, extends his pitch count, gets his whip up, and then next thing you know, he's getting tired and he might have to rely on somebody else. Also can give up the long ball from time to time. It's not going to give it up a bunch, and he does have potential to get better of it, but being a relief pitcher, you don't really want to give up any long balls. We don't want to give up long balls, period, but you know what I mean. So I think Derek Garce, it can get better, but that's something concerning a little bit out of the gate, is that he will give up the home run ball. But overall, I do like Derek Garce outside of Rodberg. That's why I picked Derek Garce for this episode. I think he's probably one of the better pitchers outside in the bullpen. Take a look at his card. Here it is right here, 55 overall, 70 potential. Also bad switch. It's just, he's never going to hit, but still pretty interesting. Like I said, home run needs to get a little better. Hits per nine need to get a little better if Derek Garce wants to make it to the majors. The last guy I have on my list, I didn't show any game tape of, is starting pitcher Damian Traylor out of Rhode Island, and that's because he actually was hurt for this year. Damian Traylor had a broken thumb, so that caused him to miss most of the season, but he is 21 years old, 2025 development, and he's got some good cons. You can see high velo, good break and control, so he's got all three. It just depends, do you want to take a chance on him with his thumb? How is that going to affect him down the line? There's a fastball, slider, cutter, changeup, all pretty high speeds, but he really won't strike out many batters, which is interesting. You can see his K per nine is a little low at 45, potentially up to 60. And he will give it the long ball and is a little bit hit prone. So he needs to work on that, but not entirely sure how much it would get better. But if he's already currently listed as a 60 on the 60-80 scale, Damian Traylor could be pretty ready rather than later. At 21 years old, he's not entirely too old yet. But that's going to do it for the prospects in this episode. Let me know which ones you think, or which ones you like the most. Which ones out of the 6 I showed you do you think we should draft? What position do you think we need to address? What do you think should be our biggest concern? Draft will be next episode, so I will be bringing you guys the draft, and we'll take a look at who becomes a Cleveland Indian. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.